everybody. Welcome to another episode of Facebook Coffee Life Talk Show. I'm Michelle Quay. I'm a confidence coach. And every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Pacific time, this is where I bring a real life story to inspire you, to connect you with individuals, speakers, and also to bring you love. I think this is what we need a lot in this world. So today I have a guest, Cesar Espino. Cesar was born in Mexico City. I had a brain fart, apologize. Cesar was born in Mexico City during the time where the country was in one largest foreign debt and was going through a financial crisis. Not only was he born in a poor family, but he was also born to a single parent, his mom, and never met his biological father. As a kid, Cesar lived with his grandmother, mom, and older brother, living in the room of what he called his house. That was about 200 square feet. This place has no running water inside, no floor, and lived and slept directly on top of a dirt, no insulation, and was made of sheet metals and plywood. He lived in this house holding four of them until the age of just a few months, over 4 years old. Around the time, his mom took a leap of faith where she decided to leave his family behind and migrated to United States to chase American dream and supported her family across the borders. This became a pivotal point in Cesar's life, in the way that it forces him to start working at very early age, at 4, to be able to survive and put some food on the table. Cesar has a master's degree in business administration, has worked in several worldwide companies, held positions in corporate America, and he's an author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything. And there's also another new book that's in progress that I just found out. So stay tuned with that. And he is a real estate investor, real estate mentor, podcast host show, you name it. Cesar is on it. He is also a fabulous coach. So without further ado, everyone, please give us a warm welcome to Cesar Espino. Hello, Cesar.
Hey, Michelle, how are you? Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today at the Life and Coffee Talk, and I'm excited to be here with you this morning.
It's so great to have you. I think we connected, and I found out that you live in LA. I was like, yeah. Oh, okay. I have a local here, and it's just very inspirational to hear your story. And I think a lot of people in our community in LA really need to hear about your story. So, without further ado, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. You cover a little bit of my backstory, and I'll just kind of reinforce what you just mentioned. I was born in Mexico City, and I was born in a time where in Mexico the country was going through some really financial stabilization. Right, it was not an easy aspect for the country itself. Yet alone for myself and my family, we were born to a very poor family. And as you mentioned, I never met my biological father. I don't know his name. I don't know anything about him. So it was really just my mom, my grandmother, my older brother, and we grew up together. And, it was funny because I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was surfacing some pictures of myself when I was a kid, and it looked like I was in a costume, right? And when you see that picture, it clearly looks like I'm on a costume, yet I wasn't. My clothes, my shoes, my shirt that really looked like a costume was really my true clothing, where I didn't have anything. And I remember just turning 40 years old, and my mom, after 4 months of me turning 4, my mom decided to take her own leap of faith, just like many Hispanic parents, to migrate to the United States and to be able to provide and give us a better life, right? And she came by herself. So she decided to take her own leap of faith and left my older brother, my grandma, and myself behind. And when you think about that, I now understand why that took place. As a kid, though, you might be wondering and asking, like, what's going on? Where's my mom going? Or what is going on here? No father, mom is leaving. Now I'm staying here behind without even knowing anything whatsoever. And that was kind of part of my reality. Well, part of my reality too, that was one of my very first turning points where I had to start working at an early age. So I started working at the age of 4 with my older brother and my grandmother to be able to survive. There was times we didn't have anything. I always say we had the specialty dish, the Mexican specialty dish, which is literally a tortilla with a grain of salt, right? And that's all we had because we didn't have anything else to eat. And so we did a couple of things growing up, and I think that's where I got my drive to be an entrepreneur now from an early age. As a kid, we started working at the flea market. And so we'll bake cookies and bread and a bunch of other stuff. And we'll also do like taquitos, quesadillas, and things like that. And we will go to the market, the flea market, to sell that stuff, right? Well, that wasn't enough. We were not making enough money to survive. We were not going to get rich off of that. It was just enough to keep us, alive and to be able to feed ourselves. And so at one point, my grandmother decided to change that, and she decided to get a sewing machine for the 3 of us. So my older brother, my grandma, and myself. So we ended up getting a sewing machine, and then we started sewing clothes for dolls, and that's what we were doing. We were using that to be able to survive. And again, it wasn't enough. I mean, we had to literally get this 50-pound bags of clothing and get them in the, it's called the micro. It's like the mini bus. And we'll get on the mini bus and go for about an hour and a half to be able to deliver this clothing at this fabrics places and just leave it there and pay for that. So the more we can produce, the more we can get paid. The faster we can produce, the more the faster we see the money. So my life as a kid was really go to school. That's one thing that I'm very grateful about my grandmother, that she was a firm believer of education. And so she made sure that we went to school. She made sure that we did our homework. So we will go to school, come back home, do our homework, eat whatever we can eat if there was anything to eat, and then literally start working, sewing all the way through midnight, one in the morning. We didn't have the ability to go out and play. We didn't have the ability to go out and do any of that. I remember there was one time that I tried to escape. My friends, Mexico is very famous on soccer. So my friends invited me to go out and play soccer. And I tried to sneak out of the house, right? And my grandmother found out that I snuck out of the house. And before I knew it, she got me, as quickly as I was going out, she got me back in with the belt and, get back to work kind of thing, right? And people might see that as a bad thing. And it may perhaps make, I realize now that I'm like, I understand that we had to. That was our life. We didn't have time to lose. We didn't have time to waste, because every minute, every second that we were not producing, we were not making, right? And so all of that, I think, has led to where I am now. I came to the States at the age of 10. And between that and now has been a definitely a roller coaster. We're here in SoCal, so like think of Magic Mountain and going to that Magic Mountain, roller coaster. It has been that, right? I came to the States at the age of 10, not knowing how to speak, read, or write the language. So I saw a lot of that as a negative aspect. I couldn't really communicate with people, and so there was a lot of things going on there. One thing that I remember though, when I was like about 10 and a half, 11 years old, is that at that time, the person that I see as my dad now, he's my stepdad, I see him as my dad. At that time, I had a little bit of an argument with him, and I said to him 2 things, and I'm not, happy for it. Yet I said these 2 things to him. I said, number 1, you are not my real dad, so you cannot tell me what to do. Number 2, I don't want to be here. You got to send me back to Mexico. And when I think about that and I reflect on that, it is the same thing that we're going through right now. People nowadays, people are going through this. And if you think about that aspect, number 1, I was not being grateful. I wasn't embracing, I wasn't surrendering to the opportunity, right? So sometimes we lose the opportunity because we don't see it, we're not grateful. I'm glad my dad didn't listen to me. I'm glad that he understood beyond my capabilities as a kid. The second thing though, is that, think about that for 1 second. I told my dad, I don't want to be here. I want to be in Mexico. Send me back to Mexico. when you think about that from that perspective, I was very comfortable going back to being poor. I was very comfortable living that life. I was very comfortable working for a living. I was very uncomfortable being in this great nation. I was very uncomfortable learning. I was very uncomfortable building a community here. And if you think about that, that's the same thing that many people are. People are afraid of being uncomfortable, and they want to be comfortable with what they know is not going to work for them. That was me back then. I see it now. I realize that you have to be uncomfortable to reach a higher potential. You have to be uncomfortable to be able to walk through that journey that is going to give you a more promising future. And so I learned that at an early age. And so then what I did is I surrendered. I surrendered to the process. I surrendered that this is going to be my new life. This is going to be a new beginning. I got to make the best out of that. And I did. I within 2 years, I was able to communicate. I was able to read, write, and do all that good stuff. And then at the age of 15, another big turning point in my life, probably the biggest turning point in my life and a blessing. At that time, my ex-girlfriend and I, we or she, or however you would have put it, we got pregnant, right? And so I had my kid at the age of 16, right? When you think about it, got pregnant at 15, had my daughter at the age of 16. When you think about that, I'm a kid raising a kid. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying one thing to my ex at that time. I said, you know what, whatever, what needs to happen here is that I'm going to work hard to make sure that my daughter has everything that I didn't have. I got to give her the things that I didn't have. I want to make sure that she doesn't have to work like I did as a kid. I want to make sure that she has a future. She has something better than what I did. And so that was my journey. And since then, I've been working pretty hard on myself. I've gone through multiple different downfalls in my life, a lot of clarity moments. And so I guess my message to that is when people think about an entrepreneur or they see the glamours or they see like you are a overnight success, that is not the case. This is a journey. I'm not happy of things that I've done in my past. I've been incarcerated a couple of times for really bad habits, things that I should have never done in my life. Yet those are also things that I've learned. And I realized that we don't go through failures. We only go through lessons. Every past experience is an educational experience for you to become better and to learn, from that past experience.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a really powerful message. We never fail. We only learn, right? We only go through lessons. And there's a couple of, thank you so much for sharing your journey. And there's a couple of points that I wanted to just kind of highlight for people, mm-hmm. because I think as a 4-year-old, I don't remember how I was in 4 years old, but if I were to think back 4 years old, I was pretty a spoiled brat, right? My parents can provide for everything. My parents basically, food is on the table. They're bringing income. All I have to do is just show up and just at the dinner table, and I take everything for advantage. And as a 4-year-old, what was the most memorable piece in your life in terms of, what was that like going to school, coming home to work and repeating the whole thing again? There's no playtime. Were you ever envy of people?
Part of me was to an extent because the one thing that I can remember is like asking myself, why can I not go out and play or do these things? Like I felt like I never had a childhood, right? I never had, for sure, I felt like I didn't have a childhood. I wasn't like a normal kid, and not because of anything on a health condition, more of I couldn't play. I couldn't go out and have that. And again, the life was, go to school, come out right after school. I couldn't go out with friends or things like that. Just come home, do what you have to do. And that's one thing. The other thing too that I also remember is that we didn't have too many birthday parties or too many of those events. Like for myself, right? I do remember right before my mom left, there was, and you can see like there was a picture, and you see myself. My mom is holding me. They were celebrating my 4th-year-old birthday, and you can see the house that I was talking about that we're living in, which is just pure plywood. And I remember that, when I think about it, though, I cannot remember any other birthday that I had in my youth. I mean, I might have one more that I can probably think of. Other than that, I didn't. And so sometimes I ask myself, like, like, is this the life that I'm going to have, right? Is this my circumstances? Is this the society that I was born into? Maybe this is my destiny. And I'm so glad that my mom took her own leap of faith, even if at that time I couldn't understand why she didn't, because that gave me the foundation and the ability to become the person that I am right now. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, I am who I am because of my dear mother. And I always say that I had two. I had my grandmother that cared for me a whole lot. I was raised by her. And then I had my mom that also was taking care of me, whether it was far away or even now, she's still living, taking care of me. And so I said, I am who I am because of my dear mothers. And I talk about that in my book too. It's like, because of them, I am who I am, right? Would I take back my life and start all over again? I don't think so. I think that, again, every lesson, every experience you go through is an experience, is an educational experience. And the way the mind works too, by the way, is that you are more you can actually get more out of whatever you do between the ages of 0 and 7. Your mind is going to observe that, right? So whether it's good habits, bad habits, whatever the case may be. And so I do know that some of the beliefs that I grew up with was around poverty, right? I'm always going to be poor. And so you have to work on that mind. You have to be able to change that, to be able to remove those limiting beliefs that you are poor. I also know that growing up as a kid, because I was always working and I was always doing something to generate some income, that led to who I am now, which is having multiple businesses or doing different things or trying different things. It's not so much about, I'm going to do one thing and I'm going to fail at that thing and it didn't work out, and that's it, I give up. It's more, I'm going to do one thing and I'm going to learn from that because it's not a failure. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to do another thing. And if that doesn't work out, I'm going to do another thing. And you continue to do that trend. And that's how I see myself going now.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And I think you and I would both agree that, there's a lot has to do with the mindset, how we think we become, right? What we
Yes.
think we become. So at what point, and I know this is not a just, you most of the time you can't single point one specific time, but at what point of your life did you realize that, I got to change my mindset and coming off from a more abundance living mindset rather than that scarcity, that, poverty mindset? At what point was that?
You know what? I think for me, growing up and even after high school, going through some downfalls, going to get my master's, my bachelor's, all of that, I would say I had a pretty successful life. I've had pretty good jobs, very well paying jobs. And it came not I would say 3-4 years, maybe down the line, 5 years, if anything, that I started looking at things from a different perspective. I'm like, something is missing, right? Okay, I've traveled all over the world. I've been to multiple countries. I've had a pretty good life. I made really good money, and I'm like, something is missing. And so for me, I didn't realize that until like my late 30s that I needed to start making a change in my life. That I needed to start going through what I consider to be a transformational phase of how I see things. And I realized that it's not so much about having that glamorous life, having that money, having all those things. All of that is good and it helps for sure. Don't get me wrong. Yet your mind is I think the biggest asset that you have. And I always tell people that the most important commodity that you have, or the biggest asset, is between your 2 ears, which is your mind. When you tie that into the next biggest commodity, which is time, right? And you take those two things, those two elements, it's like you have to start making a shift in your life. And so I did. I started doing more of networking events. I started hanging around with people that had more of an ambition, a positive ambition. I started reading. I never read, by the way, in my life. I didn't like reading. The last time I read something was in high school for my English class, and that's because I had to do it. Other than that, I didn't really start reading until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I started reading. I started doing affirmations. I started working on myself, on my inner self. And two things to that is when you think about time and you think about being appreciative of life and the things that you have and the things that are in your mind, the minute that you were born, you start dying. When you see it from that perspective, it's going to blow up your mind, because think about it. People think, you're born, good, you're counting up, really is really counting down, because the more time you're in this place, in this journey, which is life, you're really diminishing the time you're going to be here. So why not make the best out of that? And so I had to make that change. In my early 20s, all I cared about was, let me have a good job, let me go have fun, let me go to parties, go to clubs, whatever the case may be. Now it's like that has shifted in many different aspects. So it was really not until my late 30s that I decided to start making that shift.
Mm-hmm. I think what you brought up is a really interesting point, because, we've gone through our life, I had a steady job, I have income, it's good job, it's good income. And it's easy for us to say, and people who's listening and watching, maybe they're having that mindset of, well, it's easy for you to say because you don't have to worry about anything. You had a great job, you had good income, you were able to travel everywhere. I don't have any of that. So have you encountered those people as your clients?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I talk about even more so now, and I see it more now than before, right? Before, for me, it was, what is my drive? What is my, you always hear people say, what is your why, right? And it has to be further than that, though. It has to be more deep than just what is your purpose, right? For me, I when my daughter was born, I said, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that she doesn't have the life that I did when I was a kid. That was a big aha moment for me. That was a big element for me, right? And so having that in the back of my mind, saying that I need to produce, I need to do that, I need to become a better person every day than what I was before. And even so, when I was in Mexico, that was for me my driving force. So I'm again, my grandmother installed in me education. So I was a firm believer of education, and I am still a firm believer of education. So I went to get my associate's degree. I went to get my bachelor's. I went to get my master's because I wanted to make sure that I can utilize that to help me in my journey, right? And I wanted to always look at how can I grow in this ladder, in this corporate ladder. And I can tell you that it was based on drive. It was based on determination. It was based on pushing me through that. When I see it now, though, it's still part of that, yet it's beyond that, right? And now is more like, what is the legacy that I want to leave behind? Whether it's for my daughter, whether it's for anybody that is watching me. What is it that I can do, and how can I impact more people? Right? Zig Ziglar talks about, if you give enough people what they want, then you're going to get everything that you want yourself, right? And so when I think about it from that perspective, it's like, I'm not here to just take care of me. It's beyond that, right? Just like my mom or my grandmother were looking out for me, I can do the same thing for other people. Let me give them the possibilities. So I came up with this now is, I have a highest intention. So again, understand your purpose, understanding your why. I call it my highest intention. My highest intention is that I want to be able to empower people. I want to be able to aspire people, and I want to be able to inspire people through my books, through the services that I give, through speaking, public speaking, whatever I do. I want to be able to leave something that is going to resonate on people's mind, so they can start making the shifts that they need to make in their lives.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing is that you're leaving a legacy, and I love that about leaving a legacy. And what also came up for me was, you're producing, so therefore you have to produce.
Yeah.
Right? You're producing your daughter, so you better make sure that you're producing to something to provide for that product, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting that a lot of us are trying to control our life in the degree that, hey, I gotta have a job, I gotta have everything, I gotta be in control. But what people don't need to realize is that, what influence can we be? How can I be of an influence in this life? So looking ahead, what do you see yourself in doing for the next year or two that's coming up?
I would say, definitely I want to be able to do more literature. So I have a couple of different things that I focus upon, right? So I am a real estate investor and a mentor. I'm a book author, multiple book author, and a life coach, right? A mind coach. And so with that, I see all of that connecting in some shape or form. And how is that? My objective is to be able to improve your life. My objective is to be able to create a win-win solution for you and I, right? And so if I can take you from where you're at now and either give you my book, give you a piece of advice, get you to work with me in one of my programs, whatever the case may be, and I can improve your current situation by whatever fraction of that, then I've done my service, right? So for me, I want to be able to do more of that. I want to be able to continue to put out content, information, books that I can really help people out with that. And so I want to be able to do more of the public speaking. I want to be able to get to speak to more people and just really empower them, giving them the tools that they need, right? The way we met, I have my podcast show, and my podcast is You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And part of that is that I want people to listen. It doesn't cost you anything other than to listen to the podcast, where I have great speakers like you coming on board and talking about, your own challenges and how you overcame your own challenges. Because at the end of the day, one person is going to listen to your story and they're going to be like, aha, I can relate to that. I see what Michelle did. I can take that to help me in my own journey. At that point, guess what? I'm able to help more people. And so I want to be able to do more of that, just more of that, public relationships in that sense.
And I love how you tie in the real estate to the inner world, because I can take care of the outer world and I can take care of the inner world. You got two aspects of, pretty much tied in together. And I was visiting your website, and it was amazing. I'm like, whoa, dude, this guy is on top of everything.
Yeah, awesome.
Your mentor, your real estate, and your coach. So tell us about your coaching. Like, who are the clients that you've been working with?
Yeah, so I have two different foundations or two different aspects to that. The very first one is people that just are looking for accountability in their life, right? And some of my clients, they come to me and say, hey, sometimes I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know what are the next steps. I need some sort of accountability in my life that someone can help me accountable. And when you think about it from that perspective, for people to be able to get ahead, sometimes you need to have that person, right, that is holding you accountable. Sometimes it could be your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your friend, whatever the case may be. Yet when you are getting a professional person to help you with that accountability, then you start setting up tangible milestones that you have to be able to complete, right? So through my accountability program, which is the first phase of my program, is I give people many different tools, right? I give them tools in terms of the mind. I think the mind is so critical. You have to focus on the mind. I touch on that too, by the way, in my real estate mentoring program, by the way. It is a real estate mentoring program. The very first session that I have with every of my students is the mindset. I don't even talk about real estate. I talk about the mindset. Why is that so critical? Because in anything that we do in life, if you're in business, personal life, maybe as simple as, I like that girl and I want to talk to her. And then you go up to that girl and say, hey, would you like to go and grab a cup of coffee? Or let's go watch this live coffee talk today. And she says, no. Then you get discouraged, right? And so part of the reason why I focus so much on the mind is that in business, in personal life, you're going to get a lot of rejection from people. You have to be able to take on that and be able to deal with that and know that that's part of the process, and understand that just because somebody say no today doesn't mean that it's going to be a no tomorrow, right? So I talk about the mindset on my mentoring program for the real estate. Getting back to the accountability, I give them tools within that. I also give them a what I call a weekly task tracker. In that weekly task tracker, you can write down specific tasks that you must complete this week, and you can measure yourself. And again, at the end of the day, it's an accountability. You have to be truthful to yourself. Yet at the end of the week, you can see your performance. You can see whether or not you did the work you said you were going to do, or you didn't. And if you didn't, you want to be able to fix that. And we go through a bunch of other exercises that we cover that. Creating a vision board, looking at your life from different perspectives, from health, from spirituality to finances, to all these different aspects, and creating a game plan for that. Mm-hmm. My mining coaching is a little bit more advanced in the sense of now we're tapping into what's going on in your head, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people have those limiting beliefs. A lot of people have a negative relationship with certain emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's procrastination, whether it's I'm I'm just not happy, whatever the case may be. And so we tap into understanding that aspect of your life and seeing how can we fix that? What do we need to do to tap into that? And then we also talk about um, perhaps negative influences in your life, and you start clearing people. It could be a toxic parent, it could be a toxic brother or sister or sibling, it could be a toxic ex relationship, right? And so you start working on all of that to help you become in clearer mind, to become better and start looking at your finding your passion and purpose.
Mm-hmm. And so where can people find you?
They can find me all over the place. I think you can definitely go to my website, which is my name, Cesar, Cesar R Espino.com. So www.CesarRespino.com. And really, you can find me there, everything that I do. I'm also pretty much in every social media. I think for now, I'm not on Twitter or Twitter. So I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, like all over the place.
And I will have all these links in the episode note for everyone to reference back. So one last question before I let you go. You're not easily off the hook yet. One last question. So right now there's a lot of people sitting at home and they have a lot of time. We have a lot of time in our hands.
Yeah.
What would be one thing that you would share with our listener to listen? This is what you can do with your time.
Yeah, I'm going to look back to that in one aspect. If you're working for somebody, right, or you work for somebody in the past, I always tell people, make sure that you are working harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. And what I mean by that is don't be hard on yourself. Just make sure that if you go to your 9 to 5, or even if you're working from home and you're working for somebody else, and you're giving them 100% of your time, you're giving them 120. And by the time it's time for you to clock out, you come home, or you're sitting in your couch, or you're just relaxing and not doing anything. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. So right now, the fact that we have so much time, you need to kind of evaluate, where are you now and where do you want to go, right? And with that, you have a lot of time. So like right now is the time for you to decide, well, I want to be a better parent. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better wife. I want to be whatever the case may be. I want to be better at some of that aspect. Well, then figure out, what do you need to do to become better on that aspect? Or I want to start writing a book. Okay, start looking at how can you start writing a book. Start looking at, what is going to be the book about, right? Or I want to start a new program. Like whatever it is your desire that you wanted to do in the past, that perhaps because you didn't have the time, or you were telling yourself you didn't have the time, that's a mind trigger that you have to remove. Then right now, because you do have time, start looking at what can you do. I always tell people too, though, that based on what we're going through right now, right? If you think back before this whole COVID-19 and you're quarantined to your house, people will complain and say, well, I don't have time to play with the kids. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And they always complain about there was not enough time. Okay. Now you're quarantined at home and you have plenty of time. So here's my message to you. If after this is all over and you come out not doing anything new, okay, it was not a lack of time. It was a lack of discipline, right? If you come out not doing anything, you cannot complain about time. It was your discipline, which you need to work on that. And so just do something, take action, create something. And I'll give you maybe a content when it comes down to book. And I know that maybe not everybody wants to write a book, except the analogy is the same. If you want to write a book and you don't know how to start writing a book, I say, well, think about that chapter or the book title, sorry. Think about the book title. Well, you don't know the book title. Well, think about what will be one chapter. Well, I don't know what the chapter is going to be. Well, think about a paragraph. Well, I don't know what the paragraph is going to be. Well, think about a sentence. Well, I don't know what I'm going to write in the sentence. Then how about you just write one word? My point to this, it starts with that one action. Just do something. The worst thing you can do is do nothing, right? And so that would be my best advice. Take action and do something.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Cesar. And for those of you who have trouble, overcoming that mindset between you and the time, and you need some extra help, Cesar and I are both coach, and we're welcome. We can definitely help you with that. And you can find Cesar at CesarRespino.com. And
Yes.
I will have that in the episode note. Thank you so much to Cesar for coming to the show. I have a great
Michelle,
time talking.
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. And thank you everyone for watching. This is Live Coffee Talk. This is being aired every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Pacific time. So join me next time for another episode. Bye. Bye, Cesar.
Bye.